My name is Catherine. I'm 24 years old and work at a preschool. Last year, I got married and now live with my husband, George. He's 37 and works for a major corporation, so yes, there's a noticeable age gap between us. Before we got married, George was incredibly attentive and kind. He would always make reservations at wonderful restaurants for our anniversaries and never forgot to buy me a gift. When I was bedridden with menstrual cramps, he'd swiftly buy me painkillers and sanitary products. I appreciated how understanding he was. His maturity and adult-like handling of situations made him all the more attractive to me. However, after we got married, his kindness faded. "What is this terrible tasting food?" Now, such unkind remarks have become common. Before, he would always compliment even my mediocre cooking. But after marriage, he complains about whatever I make. He'd leave my food untouched and start eating food he'd picked up from a convenience store. "But I followed the recipe. I think it tastes good." Reacting or replying back would be a major problem. If I showed even a hint of resistance, he wouldn't physically harm me, but he'd yell for hours on end. No matter how much I'd apologize, he'd keep shouting until suddenly, it's morning. When this happens, it affects my job, so I've given up on talking back. This is the uneasy peace we've managed to maintain. "I'm sorry. I'll cook better next time." Next time? When is that? You're so incapable. Don't you have any self-awareness as a wife? "I'm sorry." No matter what he says, all I can do is apologize. I believe this is what you'd call harassment. People often say you should see the true nature of your partner before marriage, but I failed at that. He used to be so kind, it was too hard to see this coming. His words hurt me daily, but I couldn't entirely give up hoping he'd return to the way he was before. I couldn't get away from my husband because of these struggles. Then, as if to add insult to injury, I got news from my mom. She had been undergoing cancer treatment for a while, but unfortunately, it spread. It seemed there wasn't much more they could do. The doctors gave her a year to live. I was blindsided and devastated. My parents' home is only about an hour drive from where my husband and I live, so I decided to visit my mom as much as possible. My husband didn't seem too happy about it. Every time I'd mention going to see my mom, he'd complain. "You're neglecting our home to see your mother. What are you thinking? Mom's only got a year left, you know. I want to spend as much time with her as possible so I don't have regrets. You think you're being a good daughter? You barely earn anything and can't even do the basics right. That's a bit harsh, don't you think?" "What's that? Got a problem? We live in this nice house because I'm the one earning the money." We lived in a house bought under my husband's name. Yes, he earned more than I did. But we couldn't buy the house outright, so we took out a mortgage. Before we got married, I offered to help with the mortgage payments. Back then, he sweetly insisted he'd handle it. Look at where that got us now. "I might earn less, but I can help with the mortgage too. This house is under my name. It's my house." I knew arguing was pointless, so as usual, I just said, "I'm sorry." When I apologize, he looks pleased, which I think is the safest way to handle things. After hearing about my mother's condition, I began visiting her more frequently. To not upset my husband further, I made sure to finish all the housework before heading to my parents. Sure, he'd complain, but I'd never talk back. I'd just keep apologizing. I didn't want to risk being banned from seeing my mom. Even after a tiring day, hearing my mother's voice would lift my spirits. "Thank you for always coming over." "It's nothing. I want to see you." "Oh. What if we go on a trip, Mom?" I want us to make memories. Oh, that sounds lovely. I agree too. We'll find somewhere close so it won't be too much for Mom. How about we go on your upcoming birthday, Mom? That sounds perfect. I'm all for it. I'm so happy. It'll be the best birthday. Seeing my mother's joyous smile, I felt happiness swell within me too. Her birthday was in 2 months. I decided to start planning for it. On my way home, a particular worry weighed on my mind. How to tell my husband about this trip. Every time I'd go out with friends, I had to report back to him. He would even send multiple emails during my outings, demanding I show him photos of what I was up to. If I ignored him, it led to problems when I got home, so I reluctantly complied. My friends noticed my desperation to take pictures and felt something was off. Isn't that harassment? Harassment? Yeah, being verbally abused, being overly controlled, just like what you're going through. It was then that I realized I was indeed being harassed by my husband. Although knowing didn't change the situation, I read online that it's essential to keep evidence. Since then, I've kept his excessive emails, recordings of his abusive words, and even a diary. I have to report every plan with friends to him, but this time, it's a family trip. Surely he wouldn't control that too. Besides, I've told him about my mother's declining health, so he should understand. You visited your mother again? Don't you ever get tired of that? Today, we talked about going on a trip for Mom's birthday. It might be the last one, so we're planning to go. When I told him this, his face immediately soured. A trip? I didn't hear about this. We discussed it with the family today. I never gave permission for that. It's for Mom. She's looking forward to it. I want to make memories with the family. My husband, clearly irritated, listened to my reasoning. But then, a nasty grin crept onto his face. So, when is this trip? Just 2 months from today. I've mostly decided on the hotel, I just need to make the reservations. Wow, in 2 months? Then I guess we can't go. Why not? With a mischievous grin, my husband started fiddling with his cell phone. A few minutes later, he showed me the screen of his phone, leaving me bewildered. Look, this is an email from my sister. She's getting married on that day. I've already replied that we'd attend. We can't back out now. A wedding? I don't remember hearing about that. I told you before. You just weren't listening. Anyway, no trip. We're going to my sister's wedding. If you don't like it, let's get divorced. You can't be serious. I had no idea a wedding invitation had arrived. My husband never checks the mail. I always sorted the mail, yet I hadn't noticed the invitation. It's hard to believe I would overlook that. It felt odd that my husband would reply to the invitation himself without consulting me. Seeing my disappointment, my husband looked quite pleased. Growing suspicious of him, I decided to secretly check with my mother-in-law, Mary. Hello, is this Mary? There's something I'd like to confirm. Catherine? What's up? I inquired about the sister-in-law who lived with my in-laws. While my husband is quite the character, this sister-in-law, Elizabeth, is also quite eccentric. She turned 40 this year, a divorced woman, and her divorce story was quite tragic. Elizabeth had a child with her ex-husband. But Elizabeth never really cared for the child, even though she was a housewife. She did neither household chores nor child-rearing, simply lazing around all day. There were times when her ex-husband would come home to find their child crying from hunger. And when the child was just 2 years old, Elizabeth did something unimaginable. During this time, Elizabeth was having an affair with a shady guy from the neighborhood. Unbelievably, she would meet her lover while her child was napping. One day, the child woke up from his nap, realized his mother wasn't there, and cried uncontrollably. The child's cries went on for so long that a neighbor noticed and reported it to the police. That's when they discovered the child had been left alone and about the affair. The husband was furious, immediately sought a divorce. While Elizabeth was obsessed with her lover and splurging the husband's money on him, he dumped her unceremoniously. She wasn't good at parenting and even her own child disliked her, so she had no chance of getting custody. All that was left for Elizabeth were payments for the compensation to her ex-husband and child support. She returned to her in-laws' home. Soon after, she became reclusive, and that continues to this day. So, it was surprising to think that Elizabeth, who barely goes outside, would get remarried. Is it true Elizabeth is getting married? To my question, Mary looked shocked. What? I never heard that. She doesn't even bathe or go out. And she hasn't even finished paying the compensation. It's impossible for her to remarry. Just as I thought, my suspicion was right. The story of Elizabeth's wedding was a lie concocted by my husband. My husband told me about Elizabeth's wedding. Also, my mom only has a year to live. I wanted to take her on a trip, but he told me not to because it was Elizabeth's wedding day. There's no wedding. I wonder what he's thinking. He even said he'd divorce me if I prioritized the trip over Elizabeth's wedding. Oh. I'm sorry for my foolish son. Please ignore his absurd comments and enjoy your trip with your mother. She'll be delighted. Thank you. I will. I felt relieved knowing Mary is rational, unlike my husband. But at the same time, anger surged within me against my lying husband. Perhaps he just wanted to prevent me from traveling with my mother. After enduring so much harassment, I felt stupid for always complying. I decided to confront my husband. There's something I need to discuss. That night, I talked to my husband again about the trip. What? I've decided to go on the trip with Mom. I told you it's my sister's wedding day. Are you trying to embarrass me? It's a nice invitation, but my own mother is more important to me. So, I can't attend on that day. Enough of this. Let's divorce. Leave my house right now. My husband suddenly began to shout, his face distorted in rage. Probably because for the first time, I had resisted and didn't obey him. He started flinging things, like the TV remote and books nearby. I desperately hid behind the couch, ensuring none of the thrown objects would hit me. Suddenly, a voice louder than my husband's rang out from my cell phone. It's you who needs to stop. When my husband recognized the voice as that of my father-in-law, Daniel, his face drained of color. Dad, I've heard it all. A lie about your sister's wedding? Threatening Catherine with such deceit and resorting to violence? Unforgivable. I'm on my way. If you harm Catherine in any way, you won't get away with it. George, upon hearing his father's words, looked completely defeated and crumpled to the floor. He then began to mutter to himself in a hushed tone. This is bad. No, it's not my fault. They're misunderstanding. I didn't do anything wrong. Looking at him, I felt more scared than disappointed. Silently, I made my way out of the house. As I crouched by the entrance, my in-laws arrived. Mary! Thank you for helping. After hearing our son's words, I was certain something was off with him. I had shared with Mary the incident about the trip and my confrontation with my husband. Anticipating potential danger, she had suggested that I let her listen to our conversation over the phone. They informed Daniel too, ensuring they were nearby and ready to help if needed. We're going in to confront our son. If you're feeling up to it, Catherine, join us. We will protect you, always." Daniel's words felt incredibly reassuring. I followed my in-laws back into the house where my husband was. "Hey, the house is a mess. What have you done?" As Daniel entered, my husband looked down in silence. "You claimed it was about your sister's wedding to sabotage Catherine's trip? How pathetic of you. Why did you do such a thing?" My husband mumbled his excuses. "Catherine is so gullible. She listens to everything I say. I'm the one supporting her, yet she dared to stand up to me." Daniel sighed, clearly exasperated. "Catherine, is my son supporting you financially?" "No, I work too, and we split the living expenses. I don't pay the mortgage as he insists on taking care of it, but it's not that I can't afford to." My husband glared at me. "You earn less than me. Don't get cocky." "Yes, that's true. But it's not by much, right? It's not like you're earning that much more than me." "Shut up! You always talk too much. Just listen to me," he shouted and raged at me. But when Daniel spoke, he instantly lowered his gaze and became silent. "Don't you feel ashamed? Catherine has been trying so hard to make this marriage work, even with you like this. Catherine, he mentioned divorce earlier. You can really go through with it if you want." Honestly, I had been waiting for someone to say that. In fact, when I decided to bring up the vacation, I anticipated he'd talk about divorce, so I had the divorce papers with me. "Yes, after this incident, I've realized I can't be with him anymore. I want a divorce now. But first," I showed him the record of everything he had done to me up till now. "All the things you've done to me, it's been unbearable. I'll consult a lawyer and then proceed with the divorce. Make sure to set aside compensation money, so I don't end up like Elizabeth." The diary entries I'd kept, the relentless emails, the recording from earlier. Knowing the evidence I had, my husband's face turned pale. He probably realized he stood no chance. "Also, you've requested a transfer to the countryside starting tomorrow. It's the toughest job among all branches. Work hard there and fix that twisted attitude of yours." He seemed utterly defeated. He had used Daniel's connections to land his job at the company, and with Daniel holding a higher position, he couldn't refuse. Moreover, because of the transfer, he'd have to give up our house, his pride and joy. He had lost everything in an instant and could only hang his head in defeat. I packed my things that same day and decided to temporarily stay at my in-laws' place. If I suddenly took my belongings and went home, my mother would find out about the divorce. I never wanted to worry her at the last minute, so I never told her about the divorce. Then came my mom's birthday. For this special occasion, we went to the Grand Canyon, a place brimming with nature, to help her rejuvenate. Turns out, she visited this place when she was pregnant with me. I remember this place. When I was pregnant with Catherine, every time I dip into a jacuzzi, she'd give me a little tap from inside, like a gentle knock. Seeing my mom reminisce with such joy made me emotional. "Look at how you've grown. Thank you for coming into our lives, Catherine." Being able to travel with my mom safely today meant the world to me. We had such a blissful time, just the three of us. Fast forward a year, and it's almost miraculous, my mother is still vibrant and alive. Apparently, the trip had been such a blast for her that she's been brimming with enthusiasm for more. Whether it's because of that or not, her health improved and she became more active than before. Now, once a month, she and my dad go on trips together. She says it's the highlight of her life. With my mom back to her lively self, my dad too seemed more vibrant. I'm truly grateful I took her on that trip. I ended up receiving a substantial settlement from my ex-husband and started living on my own. When I finally told my mom, instead of worrying, she seemed oddly excited. "Do tell me all about it." Surprisingly, she was eager to hear about my misadventures, almost like it was a plot from a TV drama. She listened intently to every word. On the other hand, my ex was transferred to a demanding branch office and apparently works himself ragged every day. The compensation he owed me was initially fronted by Daniel, but he insisted my ex would work it off no matter what. A few days ago, I received a video message in my inbox, sent by my ex. In it, he was tearfully apologizing. But, when I listened closely, it was all about protecting his own interests. "I want the settlement waived. Please tell Dad that I want the harassment issue forgiven, and I want to be reinstated to my former position." Although his coworkers knew about our divorce, they weren't aware of the circumstances. So, I forwarded the mail to Daniel. As expected, Daniel was furious. "Enough is enough. If you contact Catherine again, I swear it won't be pretty. And if you dare resign, I'll tell every employee about what you did to her." Given my ex's pride, those words seem to have struck a chord. No matter how exhausted he feels, he's been pushing through at work. Oh well. I hope he finds a way to better himself in this new chapter of his life. I just pray he refrains from making the same mistakes again, especially when it comes to remarrying. You, a low-educated commoner, are not needed in our family. Victoria and Stella, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, glared at me as they said this. If that's their attitude, I have my own plans. Just you wait and see. My name is Christina, 35 years old. I've always been shy about love due to my focus on work, but a year ago, I met Hilton through a friend and started dating him. Just last month, he proposed. I had long given up on the idea of a normal happiness like marriage, but Hilton, my age, was so understanding. He never complained about my work-centric life and always watched over me kindly, so I accepted his proposal without hesitation. We're planning to have the wedding in 6 months, and I'm currently in the midst of dieting. Usually glued to my computer from morning to night, I wasn't overweight, but I was out of shape due to a lack of exercise. I was working hard to tone up. The reason was simple: for the wedding. Even though I've been a career woman until now, I'm still a woman. I wanted to wear my wedding dress, likely a once-in-a-lifetime event, in the best shape of my life. Though it felt a bit extravagant, I hired a personal trainer and started going to the gym every morning before work. Despite being busy with work, Hilton and I were making wedding preparations together and everything was going smoothly. Last week, I introduced Hilton to my parents, and next weekend, Hilton was planning to introduce me to his parents. But unexpectedly, I ran into Victoria the other day. I was shopping for a dress at Macy's in New York to wear to a family meeting with Hilton's side. I usually decide on my clothes alone, but since I was meeting my in-laws, I thought I'd include Hilton's opinion and went shopping together. Then, "Oh, Hilton?" I turned around when someone suddenly called out and saw an elegantly dressed elderly woman standing there. "It is you, Hilton." "Huh? Mom? What are you doing here?" "Just shopping, as usual." "Oh? And who is this young lady?" "Ah, I'm Christina. I'm in a good relationship with Hilton. Nice to meet you." "Oh my, you must be his girlfriend." "Nice to meet you too. I'm Hilton's mother, Victoria." I was surprised by the sudden encounter, but Victoria was a very kind and elegant lady. No wonder, since Hilton comes from a long line of doctors and his family is quite renowned locally. Hilton is also a doctor, though still practicing. "Oh dear, this is a problem. What's the problem?
Well, the thing is, we've decided to get married.
What? Really? You should have said that sooner.
I told you I was going back home next week, right? I planned to take Christina with me for a family meeting. We already had one with Christina's family.
Victoria, understandably, was taken aback, but then she smiled warmly.
That's wonderful news.
That's what he said. Unexpectedly, I felt reassured by Victoria's friendly and bright demeanor. But that was short-lived. Soon after, I would come to see her true nature. Despite it being our first meeting, Victoria wanted to exchange contact information with me. Looking uncertainly at Hilton, he said,
Well, we'd exchange it eventually. It's fate, I suppose.
He said that, so. Sorry for the odd order, but. With that, I exchanged phone numbers with Victoria. I bought the dress I wanted and then parted ways with Hilton, each of us heading home. Then, as if timed perfectly, my mobile phone rang. To my surprise, it was Victoria. Christina?
Victoria, thank you so much for today.
We bumped into each other, quite a surprise. Thanks for giving me your contact on such short notice.
No, thank you.
You know, about coming to my house next week?
Yes, looking forward to it.
Well, about that, I have something I want to talk about. Can we meet before then?
With Hilton?
No, just the two of us. I was quite surprised by the sudden request, but I couldn't refuse due to our relationship. We agreed to meet during a weekday and then ended the call. I felt uneasy, almost creepy, and unpleasant. A few days later, I went to the cafe where we were meeting, and Victoria was already there, waiting.
Sorry to keep you waiting. Nowadays, it's common courtesy not to keep your elders waiting. I'm sorry.
An unexpected jab. My unease only grew.
Anyway, I was really surprised the other day. I'm sorry for the surprise. The family meeting ran late. Well, normally, I'd attend a family meeting first if I were marrying into a family.
That was more than a jab. With a clearly malicious tone, Victoria continued.
Is it the other way around these days? Recently, my friends are lamenting that their sons and daughter-in-laws got taken by their in-laws. I'm so sorry.
Well, it's okay.
By the way, do you always shop in that area? Oh, no, I rarely go downtown.
Right, you stood out.
I thought, what's this country-looking girl doing here? Then I saw Hilton and was shocked. Did I stand out?
What a rude person. I regretted thinking even for a moment that Victoria was a nice person.
You're not aware? Look, if you want to be my daughter-in-law, you should be more conscious of those around you. Yes, I see.
Honestly, it was like picking a fight. I wasn't fashionably dressed like a model, but I wasn't out of place for New York's Macy's. It seemed like she just wanted to complain. But arguing back wouldn't help. I just said,
I'll try harder.
I just answered. Then,
what kind of family are you from? My family? What do you mean by family?
Family is in family. What do your parents do?
Oh, Dad works a regular office job, and Mom's a homemaker.
Oh my, what a surprise. Just ordinary people.
Yes, we're ordinary, as you say.
I felt insulted about my parents and answered with a hint of anger. Victoria kept questioning.
What about your education? Where did you go to college? Oh, I didn't go to college. I went to a makeup school.
After I said that, Victoria sighed deeply.
You come from an unremarkable family and have no educational background.
So, are you after Hilton for his money? Such a blatantly rude question. I was stunned and asked,
What do you mean by that? What I mean is, did you approach Hilton for our family's wealth? Every girl that comes around him is like that. Aren't you the same? No, I don't know about the past, but I was attracted to Hilton's personality. I wonder about that. I hope to properly discuss this at the family meeting next week.
Okay. Not sure if you'll be accepted, though. When we met downtown, Victoria was smiling, maybe because Hilton was there. But once we were alone, she changed completely. I was dumbfounded by her attitude. The conversation continued with her looking down on me, and then we parted ways for the day. I never expected to be looked down on to this extent. On my way home, I was deeply troubled about how to build a relationship with Victoria. The next day, I received a call from an unknown number. Hello? Is this Christina? Yes, it is. It's Stella. Stella. Which Stella are you?
What? I'm Hilton's sister. You're dating him, right? Trying to become his wife and you don't even know his family's names? Oh, my apologies. Hilton's sister? Sorry, I knew he had a sister, but I didn't know your name.
I was completely taken aback by Stella's abrupt call.
Got your number from Mom. Just as she said, an unsuitable woman for our family has arrived.
Mom said so too.
A country-looking, low-class girl trying to marry Hilton. It's causing a stir in the family. I see.
If the mother was like that, so was the daughter. I was utterly shocked by their mean attitudes, so different from the kind Hilton.
I see. Are you mocking me? If you want to marry Hilton, you better not go against me. You're coming to our family home next weekend, right? I'll be there to properly evaluate you. Evaluate?
Yes, evaluate.
You don't understand because you don't have an education? We, Mom and I, assess all the girlfriends Hilton brings. By the way, no one has passed yet. Failures don't even enter our house and go straight back home.
Be prepared for that. Now I understood why Hilton rarely talked about his family. Given their attitude, he probably wanted to establish facts at my home first, then forcefully push through at his own home. He likely didn't tell me to avoid making me anxious.
Also, bring a proper gift. I'll send you a message later about what to bring. It'll be around $300, not much. If I may say, I'll discuss the gift with Hilton.
A $300 gift requirement was unheard of.
Do you understand your position? You're asking to marry Hilton, and you're not trying to please us? Don't you understand that without a college education? You're supposedly working, but probably just a receptionist or something trivial, right? Without learning the norms of being a working adult, you don't understand. Remember your place. You're the one asking to be our daughter-in-law. Are you really even working properly?
I couldn't let this go. I responded angrily.
To return your words, I have been working properly since graduating from school. If that's the case, it's even more unbelievable. I worked at a major consulting firm until recently, but you wouldn't be of any use there.
I tried to change the subject.
Speaking of which, I heard from Hilton. You're changing jobs, right? Getting hired immediately as a mid-career professional, you must be talented.
I flattered this arrogant woman, and as expected, she took the bait.
Of course. And it's at a trendy IT company, too. The one with the makeup app and the slogan, "You can be anything." You've heard of it, right?
I was intrigued, but I kept listening silently.
I'll be in a programmer position. When you're at my level, you get hired instantly, even without programming experience.
Wow, that's impressive.
So, it's okay to be inexperienced? Well, they do prefer experienced people, but it's all about how you present yourself. Being a programmer is something you can do even without a college degree. I'd master it right after joining. But weren't you asked for a portfolio or something? You're incredibly serious, aren't you? I just paid a friend in science to make one for me. See? That's the smart way to do it.
Well, I definitely don't have the nerve to lie in an interview like that.
It's not a lie if you can do it later. That's what hiring is all about.
After saying that, as if realizing she had spoken too much.
Enough with the flattery, just make sure to bring a proper gift,
she said and abruptly hung up. I was shocked by Stella's character, just like with Victoria. I couldn't keep quiet about this and told Hilton as soon as I got the gift request message from Stella. Seriously? They said that? Sorry for not telling you. I didn't want to make you anxious.
I get it. Thanks. But what should we do?
I'll handle the gift thing. Also, if Mom or Stella calls again, just ignore them. Hilton's words were very reassuring. He then immediately contacted Stella, rejecting the gift requirement. I braced for more communication from them, but nothing happened until the day of the family meeting arrived. Despite my nervousness, I optimistically hoped that Victoria and Stella wouldn't really refuse to let me in their house after their harsh words. But life isn't that sweet. At the entrance, Victoria and Stella were waiting like grizzly bears, complaining about the gift and refusing to let me in. Worse yet, Stella spilled coffee on my dress and even sprinkled salt on it. Even the typically calm Hilton was furious.
That's enough, Christina, let's go,
he said. But I couldn't stay silent after being treated like this.
Hilton, sorry. I need to talk to Victoria and Stella. It might be awkward for you, so could you wait in the car for a bit?
Surprised by my determination, Hilton trusted me. Okay, he said and stepped back. I turned to face the two women and asked firmly,
why do I deserve such treatment?
Your presence is not suitable for our family.
Can you please stay away from Hilton from now on? What specifically makes me unsuitable?
Fine, I'll tell you. What's with that dress?
It's just some cheap thing from around the corner, right? No, it was tailor-made at a store I frequently visit.
It's probably nothing special.
So if it's not a fancy dress, it's okay to spill coffee on it?
Yes, of course.
Such a cheap thing, it's good you have a reason to throw it away. If you're going to demand compensation, that's fine. I'll pay for it. Is that so? Anything else?
Anything else? You ignored the gift, didn't you?
That matter should have been settled by Hilton.
That's a discussion for our family. If you so badly want to be part of our family, that's a different matter, isn't it? I was fed up. In the end, there was no real reason. They simply didn't like me. You see, complaining like that is the problem. As a daughter-in-law, you should quietly listen to what your husband's family says.
I see. So you always treat people this way?
Of course. I teach Stella the same. Now she's a daughter I'm not ashamed to show anywhere. Not like you, a low-educated commoner. We don't need you in our family. That's the unanimous decision.
I see. Got it.
Saying this, I took a deep breath. Time to fight back. Well, in that case, I cannot accept this.
Huh? We don't need your acceptance.
Smiling at Stella, I said, Stella, in that case, your job offer is revoked.
What? That's hilarious. What offer are you revoking?
Your job offer. The one you said was secured at the company you were joining.
Huh? Why do you have anything to do with it?
Stella's face twitched. It's my company.
I decide, right? What? What are you talking about? I intended to explain my job during the family meeting today, but unfortunately, there was no opportunity.
The two were dumbstruck. They still hadn't grasped the situation. I continued to explain.
The company where Stella got her job offer is the one I run. I developed an app while attending a makeup school, and it was a hit, so I started my own company. You keep calling me a commoner, but to be honest, I earn more than 5 times Hilton's income. That's impossible! Normally, I leave hiring decisions to HR, but this time I'll have a say. I have personal feelings due to this treatment. However, the main issue is Stella's false statements during her interview. Sadly, if a job offer is obtained through falsehoods, the company has the right to revoke it. Wait, just wait. You passed! Don't say that, or Stella will end up unemployed.
Victoria was panicking, while Stella was in a state of shock. Unfortunately, we were looking for an experienced mid-career professional, not a beginner. We weren't recruiting inexperienced people. Moreover, our company's slogan is "You can be anything," a very positive message. We don't need people who demean others or judge their worth. Please don't say that. Let's talk.
No, Victoria. Just now, you said you wanted nothing more to do with me, so Hilton and I will never pass through this house's gate again.
This hit them harder.
No! Not Hilton too! This was decided beforehand with Hilton. I'm sorry, but Hilton will have a separate family meeting with his father, so whether he keeps in touch with you too is your family's matter. I won't interfere, but I won't contact you again.
Victoria slumped at this. Here's the final blow from me.
Also, about compensating for the stained dress you mentioned earlier. It costs $7,000, so I'll be sending you the bill later.
Victoria's eyes widened in shock.
Victoria, I don't usually shop at such places. I mostly go to exclusive VIP lounges.
Take care. Saying this, I confidently turned my back on them and started walking. Hilton was waiting outside the car.
Tough day, thanks. I might have gone too far, but thanks for understanding. It's okay. Let's go eat something delicious.
6 months later, we had our wedding as planned. Only our dearest friends, who we truly wanted there, attended. Of course, Victoria and Stella weren't there. Father-in-law, looking a bit uneasy, was the only one from their family celebrating with us. Apparently, father-in-law had been fed up with Victoria and Stella's selfishness for a while, and this incident was the last straw. He started discussing divorce. Meanwhile, Stella, whose job offer was revoked, couldn't find employment and ended up working part-time at a convenience store, the very kind of place she used to scorn. We plan to teach our children when we have them. You can be anything. But only if you don't speak ill of others and work hard. There will always be people who act superior because of their family or status, but I'm sure our child will be just fine. That's what I thought, surrounded by friends' smiling faces under a clear sky at our wedding.